The Cleveland Browns walked into this season expecting pressure, criticism, and tough questions, but nobody expected this. The locker room isn't melting down because of blown leads or a struggling offense. It's unraveling because of a social media disaster so wildly avoidable, so unbelievably tone-deaf, that it's now threatening to derail a young quarterback's entire NFL future before he's even had the chance to secure it. And here's the twist. Dillon Gabriel didn't throw a single bad pass, didn't miss a single read, didn't even step on the field when this all started. The chaos came from someone who doesn't wear a jersey, doesn't sit in team meetings, and doesn't answer to coaches: his fiance. What began as a harmless TikTok fashion video spiraled into a franchise-level distraction that coaches, players, and even league executives are now talking about behind closed doors. A caption meant to be sarcastic instantly turned into a headline. A single clapback at a troll cracked open the perception that Gabriel and the Browns weren't on the same page. And in a league where image matters just as much as performance, this kind of public drama can be devastating, especially for a backup quarterback already fighting for relevance. Because in the NFL, it doesn't take a scandal, a crime, or a blown season to sink a career. Sometimes, all it takes is one moment online and one person who couldn't stay quiet. It all started with something so ordinary, so routine, that nobody watching could have predicted the chaos it would unleash. Dillon Gabriel's fiance picked up her phone, set it on her dresser, and filmed the kind of TikTok millions of people post every single day. A daughter commentary as they talked through what she should wear to the next Browns game. Brown leggings, a custom cropped sweatshirt, overpriced Atme Studios jeans, leather pants, bomber jackets. It was typical influencer content designed to entertain, not provoke. For nearly 2 minutes, the video looked like every other GRWM TikTok that gets lost in the endless scroll of social media. If she had posted it with a neutral caption, the clip probably would have pulled a few thousand views, some cute outfit comments, and then vanished into the void. Nothing more. But that harmless moment took a turn the second she typed out 5 words that would ignite a massive firestorm. Browns loss. What's new? Those 5 words instantly shifted the tone of the video. What was supposed to be playful suddenly came across as a public shot at the very The comment didn't just criticize the team, it mocked them as if losing was a personality trait. And when the fiance of a player does that, people notice. Fans notice, beat reporters notice. More importantly, NFL executives notice. Suddenly, this wasn't a fashion video anymore. It was a statement, intentional or not, coming from someone closely tied to a player fighting for his football life. And because Dillon Gabriel isn't an established starter with years of goodwill built up, the blowback hit harder, faster, and far more aggressively than anyone expected. That caption didn't just spark irritation, it raised questions about loyalty, about professionalism, about whether Gabriel understood the magnitude of representing an NFL franchise. The kind of questions no backup quarterback wants, tied to his name. And unfortunately for Dillon, the caption was only the beginning. Because once fans saw it, the situation escalated into something nobody could control. And what happened next pushed the story from ill-advised to career-threatening. On the surface, her caption looked like the kind of frustrated jab any fan might post after another disappointing Sunday. But when it comes from someone connected to a player inside the building, especially a quarterback, it lands very differently. In the NFL, optics matter almost as much as performance. And the moment that caption went live, it created the impression that even the people closest to Dillon Gabriel didn't respect the team he was representing. That's not just awkward, it's dangerous, because Dillon isn't a superstar with years of dominance protecting him. He's not an all-pro with leverage, influence, or a guaranteed roster spot. He's a rookie backup quarterback, clinging to the thin line between sticking in the league and becoming another forgotten name in the transaction wire. When someone in his circle mocks the team publicly, it reflects directly on him, fairly or not. Coaches start wondering whether he shares those thoughts privately. Front office executives begin questioning his professionalism. Teammates look at him differently, unsure whether he's fully bought in. And here's where things get even worse. The caption didn't happen in a vacuum. It happened during a heated quarterback competition. Shedeur Sanders wasn't just another guy on the depth chart. He earned the starting job through performance, consistency, and discipline. The coaching staff didn't anoint him. He took the job, which means the Browns were already closely evaluating everything Dillon did on and off the field. So when his fiancé publicly mocked the team for losing, it didn't sound like a joke. It sounded like bitterness. It sounded like frustration over him being benched. It sounded like a passive-aggressive shot at the organization for choosing Sanders instead of him. And in a league obsessed with culture, attitude, and unity, those vibes are toxic. Inside every NFL franchise, there's an unspoken rule. Backups cannot create drama. They cannot cause distractions. They cannot bring negative attention to the team. Their job is to stay ready, stay humble, and stay invisible until their moment comes. Dillon's situation flipped the script. Suddenly, he wasn't invisible. He was at the center of a storyline he never wanted. And as damaging as that caption was, the real chaos started when the video blew up. Trolls jumped in, and Dillon's fiancée decided she wasn't gonna stay silent. Once the caption started circulating among Browns fans, the video didn't just trend, it detonated. TikTok comments poured in by the hundreds, and mixed among the harmless jokes and mild criticism was one message that sent the entire situation spiraling into chaos. A user named Leon James posted a comment so aggressive, so personal, that anyone with social media experience would have recognized it instantly as bait. He accused her of being disgusting, threw around racially charged language, mocked Dillon's concussion history, and claimed the entire locker room didn't respect him. It was inflammatory, inaccurate, and designed for one purpose: to get a reaction. And unfortunately, worked. Instead of scrolling past it, the smart and safe move, Dillon Gabriel's fiancée, she fired back with a message she clearly thought would shut the troll down, but instead created the most damaging quote of the entire controversy. Actually, everyone in the building wants him to play. At first glance, it looked like a protective partner defending someone she loves. But to anyone inside an NFL organization, that sentence wasn't supportive. It was explosive. Because with those words, she wasn't just arguing with a random commenter. She was speaking on behalf of the Cleveland Browns, claiming to know the internal opinions of coaches, executives, and players. Suddenly, her argument wasn't online drama. It was a statement that implied three deeply problematic things. Dillon deserves the starting job over Shedeur Sanders. The coaches ignored what everyone wanted. There's internal tension inside the building. Whether she meant to or not, she painted the picture of a divided organization and suggested the coaching staff was going against the wishes of the team. That's not just a bad look. That's a grenade tossed directly into the locker room. Fans saw it, reporters saw it, and you can bet the Browns front office saw it. This wasn't drama anymore. It was a potential indictment of the coaching staff's decision-making, wrapped inside a TikTok comment. And once that quote started circulating on X, Instagram, and fan forums, the situation escalated from a messy comment section to a full-blown organizational headache. But the fallout from that one sentence didn't stop online. What it triggered inside the Browns facility was even more damaging. Her comment might have seemed harmless to casual fans. but inside NFL circles, it sent shockwaves. When she claimed that everyone in the building wants Dillon to play, she unknowingly stepped into territory that only coaches, executives, and team captains occupy. In the NFL ecosystem, hierarchy matters, and she had just placed herself above it. By speaking as though she had insider knowledge of locker room conversations and coaching decisions, she created the perception that Dillon was allowing someone outside the organization to speak for him. That's something teams consider a red flag, especially when evaluating young quarterbacks. Because let's be clear, quarterbacks aren't just players, they're cultural pillars. They represent the identity of the franchise. And backs, especially rookies, must maintain a spotless image. Her comment didn't just cross a line, it erased it entirely. Even worse, it implied that coaches were ignoring the supposed wishes of players and staff by choosing Shedeur Sanders. That's not just disrespectful. It indirectly challenges the authority of the head coach, coordinator, and quarterback room. For an NFL organization, that's unacceptable. It suggests unrest where none may exist and paints Dillon as someone whose personal circle is willing to publicly undermine the team. It also dragged his teammates into the drama. If she claims everyone wants him to play, then players now look like they're secretly campaigning behind the scenes. That can fracture locker room chemistry instantly. Suddenly, guys who had nothing to do with this mess are being asked whether they think Dillon should start. And when teammates have to answer awkward questions because of something said by a player's fiance, frustration builds fast. The worst part is that her comment overshadowed the actual dynamic inside the building. Shedeur Sanders earned the job through preparation, consistency, and performance. Plain and simple. The staff didn't bench Dillon out of bias. They made the football decision that gave them the best chance to win. By suggesting otherwise, she essentially accused the coaches of making a mistake. That's something no NFL staff tolerates from anyone, let alone someone outside the organization. This wasn't just a public spat anymore. It was a storyline that had the potential to question the Browns' unity, decision-making, and internal culture. And for Dillon, that meant the spotlight shifted from his talent to his drama quotient, which is the last thing a fringe quarterback ever wants. And unfortunately for him, the damage was only beginning. Because the front office in the NFL, players aren't judged only by what happens on the field. Every franchise, from scouts to executives to position coaches, evaluates something just as important: how much drama a player brings with them. And for a backup quarterback, the margin for error is brutally thin. Teams will tolerate distractions from superstars, but from a rookie still fighting to earn trust? Not a chance. That's why this incident instantly turned into a crisis for Dillon Gabriel's future. Before the TikTok fiasco, Dillon was simply a young quarterback trying to develop, stay ready, and prove he belonged in the league. Now, every conversation about him comes with an asterisk. Front offices around the NFL saw the story trending, and like they always do, they filed it away. They don't forget these things. They talk. They take notes. They ask questions. Is this the kind of situation we want in our building? If he's already tied to controversy as a rookie, what happens if he actually becomes relevant? And that's where the danger lies. He didn't just get attention. He got the wrong kind of attention. Because when executives see a player whose partner publicly criticizes the team, argues with fans, and claims insider authority, they don't see passion or loyalty. They see instability. They see noise. They see a potential problem before the player has even provided a solution. Worse, this isn't happening in an off-season or after a down year. It's happening during Dillon's most critical stretch, right when he needs to show absolute professionalism. This is the period where young quarterbacks prove they're reliable depth pieces who can grow into more. Instead, Dillon now looks like someone who might bring headlines rather than help win games. And it's not just about the Browns. If Cleveland eventually moves on, Dillon will need interest from other teams to keep his career alive. But those GMs and head coaches are now asking themselves, if we sign him, do we inherit the drama too? That's the brutal truth of the league. A quarterback's image extends beyond his own behavior. Fair or not, the people in his circle become part of his identity in the eyes of the NFL. And as damaging as this is with executives, the situation inside the locker room, the one place chemistry truly matters, was about to get even more complicated. NFL locker rooms operate on unwritten rules, and one of the biggest is simple: keep the drama out. Players deal with enough pressure: injuries, competition, media scrutiny. Contracts, game plans, without needing extra chaos coming from someone's personal life. So when Dillon Gabriel's fiance inserted herself into the public conversation with claims about what everyone in the building supposedly wants, the reaction inside the locker room was immediate, and it wasn't good. For teammates, her comment wasn't just about Dillon. It dragged them into the spotlight. Suddenly, players were being implied as secret supporters of a backup quarterback over the guy who actually earned the starting job. Even if they liked Dillon, even if they respected him, nobody wants to be portrayed as going against the coaching staff, especially not publicly. That kind of implication makes veterans shake their heads and rookies step back, wondering how a harmless fashion video turned into a statement about the players. Also know how quickly rumors spread. Once social media and sports blogs ran with the narrative that the locker room wants Dillon Gabriel starting, it created tension without anyone inside the building saying a single word. And in a room full of competitors, where trust determines how well a team functions, that's a serious problem. Even worse, the situation put Dillon in a nearly impossible position. Whether he agreed with the comment or not, he was now responsible for cleaning up after it. Teammates don't differentiate between a player and the people speaking on their behalf. If someone close to him is stirring drama, it's assumed he's either in on it, tolerating it, or unable to control it. None of those interpretations help his reputation. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders, the guy who players hate when off-field noise affects the starter's focus, and for Dillon, being labeled as the source of that noise is one of the most damaging reputational hits a quarterback can take. Because backup QBs aren't expected to be heroes. They're expected to be stable, supportive, invisible, and ready. The moment a backup becomes a distraction, the team looks elsewhere, fast. And as bad as things looked inside the locker room, the comparison to how Sanders and his family handled their own spotlight made Dillon's situation look even worse. In the NFL, perception is everything, and nothing highlighted Dillon Gabriel's misstep more sharply than the calm, disciplined way Shedeur Sanders and his family handled their own spotlight. If Dillon was unintentionally inviting chaos, Shedeur was quietly modeling exactly what teams want from a young quarterback stepping into pressure. While Gabriel's name trended for all the wrong reasons, Shedeur's reputation grew stronger simply because he did the one thing every coach admires. He stayed focused and stayed silent. Think about the contrast. Shedeur Sanders is surrounded by attention. His father is one of the most famous personalities in sports. His social media presence is massive, and every move he makes is dissected by fans and analysts. If anyone had an excuse for outside voices causing noise, it would be him. It was him. Yet throughout the quarterback competition, there were no cryptic posts, no indirect shots at coaches, no family members stirring controversy. The Sanders family, who could easily command the spotlight, chose professionalism instead. That discipline spoke loudly inside the building. Players noticed that coaches noticed he never allowed outside distractions to interfere with team priorities. The front office noticed he wasn't just talented, he was stable. That's rare for a young QB with his level of fame. Now compare that to Dillon's situation. While he struggled to secure the starting role, his fiancée unintentionally created a story bigger than his performance. She introduced doubt. She introduced division. And even though Dillon didn't personally say anything, it's impossible for teams not to compare the two quarterbacks beyond their stats. On one side, they see Sanders, dialed in, composed, distraction-free. On the other, they see Gabriel, now associated with a social media firestorm triggered by someone in his inner circle. That comparison is brutal, but the NFL is a brutal business. Quarterbacks aren't just judged on arm strength, they're judged on what kind of energy they bring into a locker room. And when the team has to choose between steady leadership and potential volatility, they always choose the steady hand. The more the organization looked at both quarterbacks, the more Dillon's situation seemed avoidable. It didn't have to blow up like this. And that's what makes the final stage of this story so painful. Because now, Gabriel isn't just fighting for a job. He's fighting to control the narrative around his entire career. For most players, a social media slip-up by a family member is embarrassing. For a young quarterback on the edge of the roster, it can be career-altering. That's the terrifying reality Dillon Gabriel now faces. In a league where opportunities are rare and reputations form fast, this controversy didn't just create noise. It branded him with a narrative that's nearly impossible to shake. And in the NFL, once a player gets a label, fair or not, it sticks. Executives around the league now have something they didn't have before: doubt. Doubt about whether Dillon can avoid unnecessary distractions. Doubt about whether people around him understand the pressure of the NFL. Doubt about whether bringing him into the building might create headlines the organization doesn't want. None of these doubts existed a few weeks ago. All of them exist now. It's especially brutal because this moment came at the exact wrong time. Gabriel is in the phase of his career where every meeting, every practice rep, every interaction, and every small impression matters. Teams don't just evaluate rookies on talent. They analyze maturity, humility, and the ability to stay out of the spotlight unless their performance puts them there. Instead of being known as a hardworking developmental quarterback, Dillon is now tied to a story about drama, a story he never asked for, but now must answer for. And the fallout doesn't stop with front office evaluations. Reporters will ask him about this. Teammates will joke about it in the locker room, but watch his reactions closely. Coaches will wonder if this is a one-time mistake or a pattern waiting to repeat. These aren't just awkward moments, they're tests. In the NFL, how a quarterback responds to adversity matters as much as the adversity itself. But here's the part nobody says out loud. This moment doesn't have to destroy his future. It can define him, or it can refine him. If Dillon takes ownership, quiets the noise, and shows the Browns and the rest of the league that he's more focused than ever. If Dillon takes ownership, quiets the noise, and shows the Browns and the rest of the league, this storyline can fade, not overnight, but eventually. And if he gets another chance to step on the field, winning always rewrites narratives faster than social media ever could. Still, the truth remains. The next steps Dillon takes will decide whether this controversy becomes a footnote or the opening chapter of a career that never reached its potential. When you zoom out and look at everything that happened, the most shocking part of this entire saga is how preventable it was. No injuries, no on-field mistakes, no scandals involving Dillon himself. Just a single TikTok video, a sarcastic caption, and one emotionally charged reply to a troll. Yet those small moments created a wave big enough to rock an NFL franchise, unsettle a locker room, and cast a shadow over a young quarterback's future. It's a reminder of how unforgiving the league can be. In a world where teams invest millions into structure, discipline, and image, even the perception of drama can be enough to push a player down the depth chart or off the roster entirely. For Dillon Gabriel, this controversy didn't happen in a vacuum. It struck at a fragile moment in his career, the time when rookies are quietly earning trust and proving they can handle the pressure that comes with the most scrutinized position in sports. Instead of conversations about his development, mechanics, or potential, the narrative around him became dominated by something he didn't even say. That's the cruel truth of being an NFL quarterback. You don't just represent yourself. Everyone close to you becomes part of your public identity, like it or not. Now, Gabriel faces a crossroads. He can let this controversy define him or not. Allowing the league to view him as a player surrounded by noise rather than potential. Or he can take control of the story from this point forward, showing coaches and teammates that he can tune out distractions, stay focused, and let his work speak louder than any comment online. Redemption stories aren't rare in the NFL, but they only happen when the player responds with maturity and clarity. But this situation also raises questions that linger beyond the Browns organization. Should a player be judged by the actions of someone close to them? Is it fair for teams to view social media missteps as red flags, even when the player didn't cause them? And in an era where every moment is broadcast to the world, is it even possible for athletes to keep their personal lives truly separate from their careers? What we know for sure is this: the NFL doesn't wait for anyone. Perception becomes reality fast, and unless Dillon Gabriel finds a way to shift that perception back in his favor, this moment, born from a caption and a comment, could end up defining a career that was just beginning.